And we're here with new Free Bounce Free Files episode here with Layla. And how do we say your full name?
In English, you can say Laila Fakhoury. In Arabic, it's Laila Fakhoury.
Okay. And hey, y'all here
You said
first.
okay.
And um, let them know who are you, where you're from, what do you do, all that stuff. A little intro.
All right. My name is Layla, as we went over. I live in Gainesville, Florida, but originally I'm from Palestine in the Middle East. I have two businesses in Gainesville, consider myself a creative entrepreneur. One of them is a record label called Dion Dia that's mostly hip hop and R&B based, and another one is called How Bazaar, which is a clothing brand, and we have a creative cultural hub in downtown, a physical space in Gainesville.
That's dope. And today we're also joined
And
by our new co-host, Pastor Rex. Clap it up, y'all.
Howdy, howdy.
Yeah, Rex, tell me who you are real quick. You know.
Pastor Rex, producer artist, out of Philly, based in Boston.
Awesome. Thanks to have you guys. So, first of all, just let us know real quick. Tell us about, um, I guess what's the gist of what you do on a day to day basis, Layla? From I guess event planning to down to the small specifics of what do you do on a daily basis?
great question. Too much shit, mostly, but I have my calendar blocked. So my schedule is basically like by the hour, and things are different each day. I have some days where I focus on the record label, and some days where I focus on the shop and the brand. But a lot of daily things include meetings with a lot of people because I'm focused on our PR, our community outreach, bringing people together for events and coordinating them. So it's a lot of meetings, a lot of time spent thinking. So just coming up with concepts and ideas and giving myself space to really be creative with the projects that we're doing. Then just like a lot of computer work and getting tasks done, making lists, making check boxes and marking them off, things like that. Pretty full days though.
Mm. So what would you say you spend most of your time doing in terms of the final goal?
Um, I would say really most of the time is just spent executing things on my to-do list for actually producing an event or producing a experience. I have, like I was saying, the two businesses, How Bazaar and Dion Dia, but I've also been doing freelance work recently where I've been doing events for artists and the city of Gainesville and different businesses, nonprofits, companies to organize events for them. So, really, like among my events through like our own projects and then other people's projects that I'm being contracted to do, I would say like most of my time goes into really just like executing the details of organizing an event, coordinating an event, which is a lot of people connection and a lot of like getting small things done to make the space look beautiful and to make sure everything is organized and structured. So yeah, I'd say most of my time goes towards like creating these experiences, and that's meant to further like our projects and the like my career specifically.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Can we get into that almost like in order? So, what does it take to
Mhm.
throw a good event? What does it take to create something, an experience that's memorable in your eyes?
Mm, great question. I mean, firstly, I think it starts with developing your why. So, why are you doing this event? What is the point of the event? Why is it meaningful and important?
Mm.
And events too. Like, I guess I'm gonna be exchanging the word events with experiences a lot, because pretty much, the same thing. Like, an event is meant to create an experience for a person, for a community, for a group of people. So that's really like the philosophy that I have behind it too, is just that I want to help create an experience for someone that's meaningful and that adds value to their life, that gives them like an area of like celebration, joy, or interest, learning something new, things like that. But sorry, to go back to the question, I'd say it starts with coming up with your why and just like really nailing that down so that the event has purpose and it's not like something that's just being thrown together for no reason. Because as like an attendee or someone experiencing it, you can definitely feel that when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the why, you want to start spending a lot of time to think. So just sitting down and really thinking about, honestly, I think mostly like in my sleep, like in my dreams, I think a lot about these events and conceptualize them. But you give yourself room and space to just like really let your mind be creative. I always have a journal when I'm doing that, and I just write down random ideas based on the event. And then after like the ideas and the big lofty goals for the event are written down, I start coming up with details of like the timing, and usually I already have a date and like the name and the bio of the event, things like that. So all of those logistics. And then I'll start like narrowing that list of things that I want included in the event, or like the concept of it. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, I just write a list of specific actions that I need to do, whether it's like getting in touch with this person, or like getting in touch with the venue about this, and, like creating a layout and a run of show, all of those things. I just make that list and then start prioritizing them, time stamping them, putting deadlines on them, and then doing them.
So, what would you say is one of your favorite events that you did last year? Because I saw a few things. Like I saw a
Yes.
whole water slide. I saw ice cream bar.
Yes.
We saw
Yeah.
Kalen Ellis with the whole thing. So like,
Yeah.
how did that go down? How did that come about? Like, did someone say, "Hey, we have an event happening. We want the other of us to come out here. We want this guy to come out here." How do you guys find the artists? How does that work out?
Yeah, I mean, for part one of your question of what was my favorite event from 2022, that's a hard question and a very easy question at the same time. It's hard because I love all of the events that we do, but it's definitely easy to like pinpoint a few special ones based on just like the meaning behind them and everything being executed perfectly. So one of them was at the beginning of 2022 on January 14th was our grand opening of How Bazaar in downtown. And so I worked really hard and persisted and got the city to close the street in front of the shop for the event. So I got a permit for that. And then the event was meant to just be a really big intersection of a lot of different street cultures that represent our brand and our community. So in part of the street, we had a skate competition. In another part of the street, we had, sorry, a car show. We had a stage for live music so that our artists from the record label could perform. We had a fashion show with 90 models, and they were all wearing Florida designers who make streetwear. And then had live art and vendors and food trucks and DJs and things like that. And it was just a really crazy moment because I had no anticipation that it would be as big as it was. There was probably over 1,200 people that came to it. So yeah, it was just insane. And it was like, there was a point where I got on the stage and looked around and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And I was so shocked. Like, I didn't even realize there were that many people. And so I just like had to take a moment and be like, wow, this is beautiful. So that was definitely like the first favorite. But then the second was on March 17th was our event called Dia Days. That was at Bo Diddley Plaza, which is in the middle of downtown, like this outdoor green space where they have a stage, and it's obviously tributed to Bo Diddley. And so it's a city-owned space, and they wanted us to do this random show on a Thursday. And it was like, no one's going to come out to this on a Thursday. And like the demographics already pretty off there, like where it's not really our like community of young and diverse, kind of interesting, weird people. So I was already like up against a lot of challenges. And I was like, okay, I just have to make this as interesting as possible to get people there. So I wrote a hip hop musical, and our artists were basically like set up in this living room style setting on the stage, and then there were artists,
Wait,
live artists around them.
Time out. Wait.
Mm?
So you're saying in order to make this interesting, you wrote a whole musical, like a whole
Yeah,
script and everything.
yeah, and it had a
Wow.
fashion show, and it had people coming out of the audience with like trumpets, and had dancers, break dancers at a certain point that did like a choreographed dance to one of the songs, a flash mob. There's just a lot. There's a lot.
Is there footage? We need this footage. It's fire.
Yeah, we're actually trying to make a little documentary on it, but it's just been so hard because we have so much shit to do. But yeah, we're coming out with that for sure because it's all documented, it's all recorded from a few cameras. And yeah, no, it was just a crazy event. It was really special. Like you don't see the demographic that we had there, like our community represented in that space ever. So it was just really, really beautiful. And that day too was really crazy because the mayor, we won the Business Arts Award from the city of Gainesville for like adding value to the city through art and creativity. But also the mayor wrote a declaration to declare it Dion Dia Day, March 17th. So now we have a day in the city, which is kind of crazy.
Wow,
Yeah. It's cool.
that's a major accomplishment.
Yeah, it's huge. It was really, really an honor.
Not to throw off the questioning, but I wanted to know how you either got involved or formed the How Bizarre.
Yeah, so Hazard came after Dion Dia. Basically, Dion Dia's purpose was threefold when we got it started. So me and my two friends, Jahi and Kari, who are brothers, we met in college, and we all had backgrounds in social work and community work. Theirs was more from like a creative aspect, and mine was like more from a experiential, like doing a lot of work and creating like events and things even from a young age. And so we all wanted to create a platform together that was bigger than ourselves, that we could use to build reputation and resources and use it as a way to affect social change through music and art. So we started recording programs in the hospital and in the prison, recording music to and like speeches and different forms of art to preserve legacy, to push messages out from two communities that are very abstracted from like a lot of the communities that they come from, you know, on purpose. And so we started like those recording programs. Then another reason was that we wanted to just really uplift local artists that were our friends, that were super, super talented, but you know, the industry is pretty inaccessible with just like prices of equipment and space and knowledge and things like that. So we really wanted to help with taking on that role and just like, you know, helping with logistics for our friends who are artists. And then thirdly, we wanted to create events and experiences for people so that our community could have space to actually express and be free and, you know, like be able to celebrate and connect with one another. So we started doing all that shit. We started doing events. We started recording artists and doing our recording programs in the hospital and the prison. And then COVID happened. So all of those things stopped. Like we couldn't go into the prison or hospital, obviously. We couldn't have studio time and we couldn't do events. So we just took the time to really sit down and think about what our community needed and, you know, like what was important to us. And so we had been doing these clothing, like vintage pop-ups for COVID, and they were just like pretty casual. Like we would just do them in different spaces because we loved vintage, but also we had like this value behind it of, you know, like the sustainability of upcycling vintage and selling it. And like the ethics behind it. And we created like this philosophy around our business. And then we took on a worker owned business model, which means everyone that works there owns it. Everyone that owns it works there. And we have equal ownership, make
So,
decisions together.
okay,
So,
can we get a little bit more on that?
yeah, about the worker owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, basically when we came together and like I was saying, was doing these vintage pop-ups, we started like, teaching people about the worker-owned style. And it's definitely like it's a very different way of business. It's very like different from typical Western practices, where it's, like very capitalist based and very like you have to exploit people to get ahead. You have to exploit the environment to get ahead, like to make money. You have to, like, you can't care about community. You can't work with your friends. Like, if you really want to make it in America and in the West and things like that, which in some like businesses and concepts is true. And in a lot of them, it's also not necessary. And so, like, having the worker owned model, one of the reasons that we took that on too is because we kind of wanted to prove that it can work. There's still like some issues that we're running into in terms of scalability right now, but those are things that like we're trying to figure out, trying to think through. But definitely, we're proving that like you can put community first. You can work with your friends. You don't have to exploit the environment or people in order to get ahead. And yeah, so there's 5 of us that co-own it together and, make decisions and do different things, have different skill sets to make it work.
Definitely love to see cooperatives making their face known in the music industry. I think we have a lot of room to enact that, being such a diverse and like a completely pop out of nowhere industry where people can really create something new.
Right. Yeah,
No,
for sure.
I
For
think it's really
sure.
dope right now because we are seeing a lot of different formats of businesses where we're seeing you guys were seeing La Russell with his offer based tour that he did in Cali. Then we also
Mm-hmm.
saw how some people are using NFTs for their projects and giving proceeds
Yeah.
towards like tuition in college and stuff like that. So it's just really dope to see different ways of how people are really going about creating community around music and around
Yeah,
art.
for sure. Yeah, it's essential. I mean, that's really where change comes from, is through culture shifts and through creativity and through art. It's universal. So that's really where a lot of important, significant changes come from.
Um,
So I think we went a little bit into what you do, but it may be interesting to find out how you got there.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about the journey you've had up to this point.
Yeah. So when I was talking to y'all separately, I'd mentioned that my path was really social work for basically my whole life. And throughout college, I was really involved in nonprofit work and different community organizing and activism. And so I was working like in the prisons, in the hospitals, the crisis center, a few other nonprofits. And I was just really focused on that for my life. And I was expecting to go to law school for international humanitarian law so I could work for Palestine, where I'm from, and also for other oppressed people. And when I got to college and was still like doing that social work, I also met my friends Jarhi and Kari, like I mentioned, and they just really inspired me creatively. Where I always knew that I was a creative person since I was young, just because like I'd always been interested in a lot of things artistically and would just like play around with a lot of ideas, but I didn't realize how important it was to me until I met them and saw how important it was to them. And so when we like realized we had that commonality of like the community love and like the social work and like the want for social change, and then we like explored it through creativity, that's how we came to the label. And then we just kind of like naturally fell into our places of, where our skill set is and just running with that. And so, like I said, I'd kind of been doing events for a long time. Like the first event I did was in sixth grade out of nowhere. I just did like a movie screening at the college where I lived in Florida, for a film about Palestine. And then, like had a comedian and a whole little lineup. The comedian was Fuzzy Tube. I don't know if y'all are
Oh
familiar
my
with
lord.
him. Yeah,
Boozy
it's
tube.
and he's super weird now. Oh, I shouldn't say that. That's like mean. But like, he's different than he was when he got
Yeah.
started. And it was so weird because that was the first show he ever traveled for. Like no one had ever asked him like at that point, "Oh, can you come and like speak at this event?" And so he was like, "What? Of course." So he came to that. And then there was just like, some other activities there. And then like in high school I did a gaming tournament for a fundraiser, just like things like that I didn't realize were that I liked so much. And so when I started doing it through the label, it just felt really natural, and the why was definitely there for me, and the meaning, which was again to create community and spaces for people, especially being Palestinian. Like I learned that from a young age, is that firstly community is everything you have, and like you spend your life really wanting to uplift others and like help others, but also like I know that there's a lot of importance in having physical space, because having space where you actually have freedom, and freedom is like to create, to express. So it kind of came from like my roots as being Palestinian. It came from meeting my friends who inspired me creatively, and then it came from just like practicing different event styles, different things, and yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. I can see how the foundation was slowly formed with event planning starting early on.
Thanks. I'm glad I made that clear. I feel like I be talking too much. I'm like, am I even making sense?
Oh, it's an interview, so we'd hope that you talk.
Okay, good.
And honestly, like I prefer you to just keep going, and give people, because in the end, I do want to feel like a conversation, and I do want people to just hear, different aspects of the music business. So I feel like we were talking about this before we even did the interview, like about how wait, I actually have this down in the notes. Um, where is this? But we were talking about just how important it is for artists to have events as part of their promotion, as part of their planning in general,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's important for people to have different points of view when it comes to the music business, because I feel like as producers, I may not see how artists sees the business, and I may not see how you see the
Mm-hmm.
business. And the same thing
Right.
from your point of view, it's like when people are trying to work together, it helps if everyone kind of has a little bit of insight on what everyone else is doing, which is why it's huge
For
to have you
sure.
on here.
Yep. You ain't lying.
Because let's be honest, it's like how many artists are in events or are actually running their own events as part of their own grind on a daily basis,
Yeah.
on a yearly basis.
Not too many, but it's not easy, when you are also making your music and pushing it. And yeah, it's definitely difficult, but I think that it's something that more people should look into exploring, is just like hosting events and or getting involved in them if there is already like an infrastructure around them.
Definitely.
Well,
So going back actually to the label, I'm kind of interested in hearing about how that came to be. So before the How Bizarre.
Yeah. So pretty much the stuff that I was mentioning is just the foundation of it, where I met Jarhi in college in an astronomy class, and then he introduced me to his brother Kari, and then we all just found like our common ground with the social work stuff, and then wanted to create something. So we created a record label because to us, like we believe that, and this is true, like a label can really be anything, so it's just kind of like this intersection of cultures, like it, and that's what we loved about it, because we had so much interest in all different areas of culture, like automotive and skate and fashion and art and food and music. So that's why we settled on the label, because of its ambiguity. And then the first thing that we did to kick off the label was start events, because we knew that when we started, our artists started dropping their music, the artists that we were working with and helping record, they would have a physical following in Gainesville, like a fan base built in, that when they started releasing their music, like there's already people who'd seen them perform, who were like excited about them, energized by what they were doing and wanted to listen to them. And I never underestimate the power of local. Like there's a lot of local power in your community. Like a lot of people think it just has to go immediately to national, but it's always local, national, international. So we really wanted to like foster a community around the artist by doing events. And we started doing silent discos. So silent discos are actually, to me, some of the most autonomous events in the world, because you go into a space and you can get some headphones and listen to the music at whatever volume you want. You can change the station. You can take your headphones off and actually have dialogue with people. So we started doing these silent discos in this radical library in Gainesville called the Civic Media Center. And so in the library part, we would have a silent disco with like three different DJs transmitting different music to the stations. And then you would go through a little hallway into this annex that was like this cement room. And we would do a boiler room style there, so that if you preferred like the more club style, loud music, you go in there. And then outside in their courtyard was always like some relaxed experience where you could just get away from that kind of energy and meet people and recharge and get food and check out vendors, listen to like a little bit of live music, and go back into whichever experience you choose. So we really again like wanted to create those spaces for our community to like have room to just like relax and enjoy themselves and get out the house, you know?
So, how do you find now in current day organizing events still with the pandemic, festering in the background? How do you
Mhm.
manage that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always, that's the thing, is like COVID happened, but like it's still happening.
Mm,
So it's tough. It's tough to navigate. I mean, it's been tough. Like it was really sad when it happened, obviously for a lot of reasons, but like for us it was sad, like having to disconnect from the community that we were building, and like everyone being home and quarantining. So it was like sad not being able to do those things. But like later, as COVID started to get more relaxed and it wasn't affecting as many people, we were able to start doing outdoor events. And the
mm,
outdoor events that we did were through How Bazaar. We started events again with How Bazaar rather than Dion Dia,
mm.
because D&D is, like parties and shit like that, like you close and like breathing people.
Yeah.
But the through How Bazaar, we were able to start doing these outdoor night markets when we got
Mm,
into our first physical space. And so with the markets, like they were a really great opportunity for one, artists and like creators and small businesses to sustain themselves partially throughout COVID, by selling their products and selling their goods, and then for the community to be able to support those businesses and buy things locally. So that was a really big piece of it. But also, it was an event that could happen during COVID where people could socialize in a more safe way, with it being outdoors and still like the mask regulations and like all the vendors being socially distanced and things like that.
mm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely always going to be a consideration moving forward now, is like COVID and just, tight spaces and people breathing on each other. But we're just taking it day by day, and, like really seeing what comes, and being sensitive to everything that's going on in the world, and trying to, like respect what is best for the community always. But yeah, we do a lot of outdoor events too, so that's always helpful.
Definitely.
People can choose where they're at and how far they are from the rest of the crowd.
No, we need a summer event, and so we can like talk about it, and then I'll slide there. No, it's like for real.
You said we need one?
Yeah, summer event, and I'll be there. That's fire.
Let's I got you. We got a festival coming up. Y'all got to come to that.
Yes, yes, yes. And you can send it our way. I'll put it in the server over here, and we'll put it on the Instagram. All that. We'll share it for real. That'll be dope.
Hell yeah. Thank
Um,
you.
so one of my last questions is because we do have to wrap this up. Is just so usually at this point my question is what are your five favorite plugins to produce or artist, but that doesn't apply to you. So I
Don't ask
guess
me that.
yeah, I guess my question for you is what are like three essentials, um, three things that are essential to your work. So it could be maybe a person,
Hmm.
it could be a thing, it could be a app, whatever. What are three things that are essential to your work on a daily basis?
Great question. I want to give a meaningful answer, but I don't want to like sit here thinking forever. So I'll just
Hmm.
do what comes to the top of my head. Uh, Firstly, I would say obviously community. Just like being connected to people and having a network is essential with what I do, especially because with every event, I sit down and try to think, how can I involve as many people in this as possible? So that there's a lot of different circles and networks that are connected to the event and that, like feel like they have stake in it so that they like, are represented there. So I would say like having a strong network is the most essential thing, and like being able to bring other people's creativity into the event to make it more exciting, more interesting. Secondly, I would say pen and paper. Journals are like everything to me. I have like a library of journals at this point. And I just write down all of my ideas as they come for events or for projects or for marketing and promotion, social media, things like that. So, yeah, writing is really important for me. The third, um, I don't know, a team, of course. Having a team is essential. It's like cute to do things by yourself, but it's not easy. So
That's
I would
real.
say like having a team to lean on, especially like a strong team that all has a shared vision, even if they have different skills and different interests, and just are different people, like we are with How Bizarre, and with Dia, like we have that shared vision and like the shared ethics that really is what drives us together and what allows us to work well together. So team is everything.
Man, she dropping gems over here. All right. I know
No,
for real.
I was like, what's happening?
No, I'm snapping. I'm snapping. If I had a camera on, it would all
Oh,
make sense. I
thank
promise.
you.
But
I was like, is he okay?
nah, thank you for real. Is there anything that you want to leave for any artists or producers or any creators who come by here? So, like, I guess 30, 60 seconds of a statement that you want to leave people.
Yeah, I mean, just keep creating. For me, one of the greatest lessons I ever learned was to never let doubt stop you from anything that you do. Even if you feel it, like you can accept that, but you got to work through it and keep keep being creative. Keep doing the things that make you happy and fill you up. And yeah, keep doing the damn thing, I guess.
Mm,
And
I
actually,
felt that.
I have a pop up question
Yeah.
because you're talking about a team. Okay, technically, this is like way after. But what makes a good team
Mm,
for what
I
we're
I
talking
think
about?
it's sorry.
Like,
What was that?
in terms of the roles that we're talking about. So, in order to create a good event and to do like what you're looking to do, how do you create a good team for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like having people in your life like it that you can work with. Sometimes it's really hard to find those connections. Like there's a lot of people, I mean, including me, like growing up my whole life, feeling very disconnected from where I was at because I grew up in like a town that I just was not welcomed in and that I didn't fit into. So I just like always felt like I didn't have anyone to just like share ideas with and to like want to build with. And so I feel like a lot of people experience that kind of loneliness in what they do. And that can make it really difficult to find the people that are important for you to connect with. But I think that you just have to be open to finding those people and just really focusing on what y'all share ethically and with your values. Because, like I said, really like having the same vision is everything, you know, like understanding the mission, understanding the assignment is everything. Like, you need to work with people who are aligned with what you believe in, because in the end, like, it's not necessarily about like the business logistics if you can't even, you know, like agree on what is important to y'all and what your why is and your meaning, your purpose behind what you're doing. So yeah, I think that it's a hard thing to find those people, and sometimes it's sad like that we can't find them. But once we do, like, really just digging into what's important to the both of y'all, or like the group of y'all, and what connects y'all, um based on like values, ethics, vision, and just really like staying true to those things.
And and then on the next step up, who are some of those people that you're looking for? Is it we're looking for a promoter, we're looking for a sound guy?
Mm,
What are those? Who are those people they need to create
yeah.
their team?
So particularly for like when you're running events, right? Like for me, for example, like what team I would look for.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, with events, number one, a designer is central. Like having someone, especially someone that you are like connected to, like that you like y'all get each other. So like for me on in both businesses, the label and How Bizarre, that's Kari. So Kari is my